Hey y'all. So I'm constantly getting asked what I think is the best solo roamers on each faction and why I think so. So gonna try to go over that real quick for y'all. Try to keep in mind that this is a solo tier list. It's not warband or anything else. Um, I might put shaman above witch hunter, for example, even though a witch hunter will beat a shaman. It's just that shaman will win against most other things, whereas witch hunter might not. So try to keep that in mind. So first, let's get off with chosen, I guess. I think chosen deserves a solid A tier, maybe even S. Easily best solo roaming tank on Destro. It's very hard to kite a chosen who's running Quake, Absorb, Auras, highest damage tank on Destro. Just very solid. Next, let's do Knight. Um, Knight, I'm gonna throw in B. It doesn't do the most damage. It's very hard to kill though, and if they decide to go reflect build, you're basically gonna have to walk away from them. But at the same time, if someone decides to walk away from you as a knight, uh, that's just how it is. Easily the strongest solo roaming tank at the moment, the Swordmaster. Uh, Definitely deserves S tier. While there are no good solo Swordmasters at the moment that I'm aware of, um, you can clearly see the kit. And even on my renown rank 40 Swordmaster, I can farm renown rank 80 Chosens and shit. Um, you get 75% parry very easily. You get a tactic that when you parry, you get a guaranteed parry. Again, you do spirit damage. You do the same damage as a black orc, except you do spirit damage. And to top it all off, you have a fucking leap. So, easily deserving S tier. They cannot lose to any other tank. If you do, it is simply because you just didn't keep your parry buff up or you just did something horribly wrong. The next tank is the Black Orc. While Black Orc is easily the best looking tank and probably the funnest to play, it is also just undoubtedly the worst for solo roaming. You have the worst AoE snare or ranged snare. You don't have the ranged root of an Ironbreaker. You don't have the leap of a Swordmaster. You don't have the parry of a Swordmaster. In fact, you have the lowest parry of Destro tanks as a two-hander. You're the squishiest, and you don't even do as much damage as a Chosen. Um, it sucks. I've always argued Black Orc is the worst solo roamer for tanks, and they just keep getting caught with nerfs, or the solo builds do, like removing UWatt and you know. But it's fine. It's still a fun class. Still gonna see people solo on it. I will too, but just definitely not the best. Wouldn't recommend it. Next is Ironbreaker. Ironbreaker definitely still above Chosen, not above Swordmaster. I'm gonna put it high A for now. You can't really lose to anything on Ironbreaker, but you have to play defensive sword and board full Death Tard. Um, which is okay because you can get away with it because you have double armor debuff. And unlike Knight, if people try to run from you, you have your M1, which is a ranged root that cannot be broken. So, very solid. Very solid class. Again, very fun too, in my opinion. Maybe not S&B, but two hand is fun. Blackguard, it's going B. I'm gonna put it above Knight though. You have to play two hand Blackguard. You're just not as defensive as the S&B Ironbreaker, and you're definitely not doing anywhere near the damage of S&B Ironbreaker. While you do cap out on parry with two hand, you're still not doing as much damage as Chosen. And to be honest, you're not doing as much damage as a sword and board Ironbreaker either. So, I think it's a solid B. I'd recommend playing it if you want to play Ironbreaker or Blackguard. Alright, so next let's do the healers. So, to no one's surprise, and or hopefully no one's surprise, Archmage and Shaman both going broken tier. They can lose 1v1 to like Witch Hunter and Witch Elf, but that's about it. Everything else is kind of brain dead for them to win against. It's just, if you don't have hands but you want to solo roam and you have 2 remaining brain cells because you've watched my videos and you want to solo roam, play an Archmage or Shaman. You really cannot go wrong with them. Next is Rune Priest and Zealot. They're in a really weird spot. They don't lose to any tanks, but at the same time, if like a Chopper, Witch Elf, or like even Marauder, White Lion get on them, they're just dead. But they will also beat ranged, so it's just, they really only lose to melee DPS. So I'm gonna put them in A tier. Not the best, not the worst. Can definitely solo well on them. I'm gonna put Warrior Priest and Doc in high B tier. Mostly because anything with a brain can kite these classes to death. They used to be decent at catching people, but their snares got nerfed, proc chances got lowered. Just, they're way too easy to kite to death, and both Witch Elf and Witch Hunter will shit on them as well if played correctly. Next up is the DPS. So, Marauder. I'm going to put it in low A, maybe high B. You have to play Monstro, in my opinion. If you don't, you're going to lose out to a lot of melee. Whereas if you go Monstro, you're just Oonga Boonga winning. Very solid. You have charge, so people can't kite you. You have pull, so people can't kite you. Your damage is pretty good, even for Monstro. Pretty good survivability. Just very solid melee DPS. Next is White Lion. It's going all the way in bottom C. Like, it can be very good. Like, it could be high B, could even be low A. It's just, it's very hard to play it right, and I don't think any White Lions at the moment are doing so. Not that I see anyways. You can really abuse the pet system and just never let people get out of combat while healing to full yourself. So that alone deserves A, but for fairness of people playing it, I'm gonna put it in C. Slayer and Choppa. They have a lot more survivability and regen than people think. If you spec for it, you actually have pretty insane self regen and shit, while also dealing insane damage. You're still gonna lose out to Chosen and the other tanks above it, but you're gonna beat everything below it as well. So very solid. Witch Elf, gonna put that in broken for sure. Just way too easy to play. Um, Way too much damage even in Deftard build. Just there's really no thought process needed for a Deftard Witch Elf. Witch Hunter, I'm gonna put it below Swordmaster actually. I do think they have potential to be broken as well, but they're pretty. I don't want to say hard to play, but they definitely have like a high skill ceiling. Like if you're bad with Witch Hunter, you're still gonna do really well, but if you're extremely good, then you can really show that. Lastly, we'll do range DPS. So, Shadow Warrior. Gonna put it in A. I think it's easily one of the best ranged classes for soloing. It's not the best, but it is definitely strong. I'm gonna put Squig Herder right above it, and for both of these, you just can't lose to melee. Like, if you get caught on either of these in melee with like tanks or something, it's just that's you fucking up. That's not you being a bad class. That's you allowing melee to catch you. Um, we'll do. I want to say Bright Wizard and Sork go in D tier. They can do well, but it's extremely hard to. Any good player is going to punish you on either of these classes with any other class, but you can definitely outplay if you really need to. Whereas the best range classes, Magus and Engineer, Magus just can't lose to anything. Magus is actually sleeper broken. Um, a fully bis Magus can't even lose to a an Archmage. It's just if you want to truly be broken, play a Magus. Engineer is going A because it doesn't do the damage of a Magus. And to be honest, I think Magus is just easier to play. And Engineer, full Deftard, can still lose to like Witch Elf, Shaman, and even Chosen. But that's about it. Some final thoughts I want to get out there is let's just go over what everything will lose to, I guess. Magus will lose to nothing. Archmage will only lose to Magus, won't lose to Shaman. Shaman will lose to Archmage and Witch Hunter. And Witch Elf will lose to the tanks. Or can, I should say. It'll definitely lose to a good Swordmaster. It'll lose to a good Iron Breaker. But that's about it. Swordmaster will lose to a Shaman, a Magus, maybe a Squig Herder, if that Squig Herder is ready to jump away when the Swordmaster uses Leap. But for the most part, Swordmaster is going to beat most Squig Herders, or should. Witch Hunter's only going to lose to a Magus. Chosen, very easily chosen. And it can actually lose to Black Orc, but it really shouldn't if it uses its 12 seconds of parry and its knockdowns and resets effectively. But if they try to Oonga Boonga each other, the Black Orc's going to win. Engineer. Gonna lose to Magus, Shaman, Witch Elf, possibly Chosen, but that's it. Assuming the Engineer goes full Death Dart or a regen. Next is the Ironbreaker. The Ironbreaker is going to lose to the Magus and Shaman. That's about it. If you lose to anything else on a defensive Ironbreaker, it's kind of insane. And even then, you can probably just walk away from both the Magus and Shaman as well. Chosen. Chosen should lose to Ironbreaker, Swordmaster, Archmage, and well, to be honest, that's kind of it. Can lose to a good Warrior Priest if that Warrior Priest like really knows what they're doing and gets pretty lucky with not getting parried on their regions, but that's about it. It's pretty solid. Rune Priest. It's both Rune Priest and Zealot. Like, it's hard to say what they're gonna lose to. Like, definitely Witch Hunter, but it kind of depends on how much healing you're spec'd for. Like, you're not gonna lose to Archmage. Rune Priest will still lose to Magus, no matter what. But they're not gonna lose to much for sure. But they're also it's pretty easy to walk away from them. Squig Herder, you're losing to Archmage, Witch Hunter, Swordmaster, Ironbreaker, Engineer. Even a good Rune Priest will kill you. Kind of same goes for Shadow Warrior, but reverse it. Fucking Magus, Shaman, Witch Elf, Chosen. If you let the Chosen get to you anyways. You should always be able to outkite the Chosen. Mara is going to lose to everything above it, to be honest. It's going to lose to Shadow Warrior. It's going to lose to Rune Priest, Engineer, Ironbreaker, Swordmaster, Archmage. But still very solid. Slayer. Sorry. Slayer's going to lose to Chosen. It could lose to Zealot. It's hard to say. Definitely loses to Squig Herder. Definitely loses to Magus, Shaman, and Witch Elf. Well, it's a toss-up with Witch Elf, too. It's kind of a skill matchup, to be honest. Like, I've seen Tosh. I've seen has Matuki, whatever his the other Slayer is. I think it's Hazmatuki. Something. Sorry. They'll both shit on Witch Elves, but at the same time, I've seen other Witch Elves who don't play anymore shit on them. So it's just it's a skill matchup for sure. Choppa. I'd say Choppa loses to Slayer. Choppa loses heavily to Ironbreaker, Engineer, Witch Elf, or Witch Hunter, sorry. Swordmaster, Archmage. Just very solid, but still loses to a lot of things. Both Doc and Warrior Priest will lose to almost every tank. Will lose to anything that can kite it. Will also lose to melee DPS who can just outdamage it with a 6-second parry buff. So solid, but easily outplayed. Blackguard will lose to everything for the most part. Knight will also lose to, well, not, he won't lose to very much, but he also just won't kill very much. So Black Orc loses to everything besides White Lion, in my opinion. White Lion also loses to everything mentioned beforehand, including Black Orc, if played Unga Boonga style. Uh, if you played the cheese, I think White Lion could easily shoot up to S or Broken tier. But the way everyone plays it, definitely C tier. Um, Bright Wizard and Sork are just going to lose to themselves via explosions. Yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Have a great